Today's hearing was a pretrial conference, and Blake's team wanted the pretrial press smear campaign that they claim that Brian Friedman is doing by releasing documents and videos and all the things. They want him gagged. They want a gag order. Gag orders are extremely hard to get in federal court, and the press has a right to know about public records and publicly held court cases. So gag orders are very rarely granted, and the gag order was not granted today.
I will adapt to the rule with some reluctance. Still, I don't want satellite litigation about the statements of the lawyers. If it turns out this ends in being litigated in the press, I may accelerate the date of the trial. Unless the case is settled, a jury will speak. Damage is done before a jury speaks. Look, not a lot that we got out of this, but it seems like the judge is annoyed, but agreeing, let's move forward and stop this chaos.
At last, the pre-case hearing is in court. All that hide and seek between Blake Lively and Baldoni has now turned into an actual legal case. And what came out of this first hearing is quite clear. As reported, judges have reportedly denied the request to remove Brian Friedman from the case. However, a gag order has not been issued yet, and the judge emphasized to Blake Lively's lawyer to present how the other parties are being affected, something that wasn't originally part of their application to the court. Even though there was nothing quite substantial in terms of decisions made or statements issued by the court during this hearing, it was more about the judge wanting to move the case forward. On the other hand, this hearing wasn't ideal for Blake Lively and her team, as their requests, both for Brian Friedman's removal and for a gag order, were not granted. The judge's focus seems to be on progressing the case rather than addressing these specific demands at this stage.
We encourage people to read her complaint. You could have said that, review our pleadings, but you went further. They said SH is illegal. My client suffered hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. We're willing to stipulate to local rules. I will adapt to the rule with some reluctance. Still, I don't want satellite litigation about the statements of the lawyers. If it turns out this ends in being litigated in the press, I may accelerate the date of the trial. Unless the case is settled, a jury will speak.
Andy Signore, on his show, broke down the case hearing, analyzing all the statements made by the court. He highlighted that the court appeared to be annoyed with Baldoni's team for introducing so many changes after the case was filed. While the judge didn't outright reject all of these changes, they also denied the requests made by Blake Lively's team, specifically the push for a gag order and the removal of Brian Friedman from the case.
I'm surprised not a lot really happened. The judge did seem to be annoyed with Justin's team in the amount of stuff they were putting out there, but didn't really come forward and tell them, that they have to remove it or gag orders. None of that happened, but clearly was like, all right, enough. No more. It's time to stop.
Andy Signore also reacted to Blake's lawyer, trying to avoid involving other celebrities who previously commented on the situation, as well as Lively's team's efforts to stop disclosing details about them. Andy argued it seems odd to request such an order, as the matter is public and should be treated as such. However, he acknowledged that if the goal is to avoid a situation like Diddy's case, where everyone who spoke was dragged into the legal battle, then the effort might be justified.
So again, trying to protect some of the celebrity information, which is odd to me. It's all public use. It should be, but some of this was private correspondence, and some of these celebrities may not have been involved. And we don't want another Diddy situation, right, Kim? Where anybody who is caught speaking up in a text between these people is suddenly now thought to how to freak off and cursed off Justin. I think that's what they're actually trying to avoid here. And I can't say I don't. Kim, that doesn't seem like a problem to me.
However, Leslie Sloan's lawyers requested her company to be exempt from the case, arguing that it is run by a woman. Signore laughed, saying, "This is the first moment where I was actually shocked."
The lawyer for Leslie Sloan and Vision PR, we're going to have to move to dismiss the false light and civil extortion claims. This is really a case about their crisis management team saying they are going to bury people. They are just finger pointing at us. We want to move to dismiss. Are you moving for a stay of discovery? We shouldn't be subject to it. My client's female-run company shouldn't be subject to this.
It's Kim from Popcorn Planet also reacted to the argument made by Sloan's team, calling it an interesting request. However, she added that she doesn't think it's going to happen, expressing doubt that the court would grant such an exemption based solely on the fact that the company is run by a woman.
I feel like if this is a situation where we're saying that a woman-run company should be exempt from this, then that would mean that Tag PR would also be exempt from this too. Which I don't think is going to be the case. It's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's going to hold up. not that defense.
Senor also reacted to the judge's decision to deny Brian Friedman's exclusion from the case, noting that it seemed like the judge immediately dismissed Lively's team's request without much consideration. He highlighted how the judge's quick refusal made it clear that this particular demand wasn't going to gain any traction in court.
The Lively deposition will not be taken for now, but Miss Lively does not get to choose who deposes her. No, says the judge. We'd be fine if they deposed without documents, but there are other parties. They're still trying to make complaints here. And again, this confirms that Lively did make that request and the judge had to say, no, Miss Blake Lively, you don't get to pick who deposes you. That's another big takeaway from this.
Senor also mentioned another part of the hearing where Lively's team pushed for a gag order, arguing that Friedman had made everything public and was now claiming that Lively made these accusations to take over the movie. In response, the judge simply posed a counter question. Isn't that in his case, suggesting there was nothing wrong with Friedman's statements as they were part of his defense.
Friedman's client, Megyn Kelly, he said evidence is being planted. He said Blake Lively was no victim. She used allegations of SH to try to become the director of the movie. Judge, here's a good clapback. Isn't that all in his complaint? Yes, because it happened.
Yeah.
Or I guess as Blake would say.
That's because this never happened.
You're not supposed to, got some Spyro in there. Lively's lawyer, you're not supposed to launch attacks on the character of your adversary.
After the hearing, Baldoni's lawyer appeared confident while addressing the media. He stated that he and his team are pushing to move the case to trial as quickly as possible, emphasizing that their client is devastated by the situation. He stressed the importance of resolving the case swiftly to prove their client's innocence in a world where people often judge before giving someone a fair chance. The urgency in his tone reflected their determination to clear Baldoni's name.
And want to move the case along as quickly as possible. And we just couldn't be more pleased with how the case was handled today, how it was managed. And we're going to move as quickly as we possibly can and prove our innocence in a world where sometimes people judge you before they give you a chance. And we're going to change that. Thank you.
Mr. Friedman, you mentioned that your client suffered financial loss. Can you elaborate on the projects he lost out on?
Okay. Law experts are weighing in on the first hearing, noting that Judge Lehman's approach effectively prevents both parties from sharing anything in the media unless it's absolutely crucial. This move seems to be an effort to control the narrative and limit public speculation, ensuring the case remains focused on legal proceedings rather than playing out in the court of public opinion. Famous legal expert and YouTuber Peter Tragos reacted to the first hearing, suggesting that the judge appears to want both parties to put an end to the smear campaign against each other. He also noted that after the hearing, Brian Friedman's tone seemed noticeably softer, as if he no longer wanted to be overly vocal about his opponents or the court proceedings.
Baldoni and his team have focused on they're already responding to allegations that are prejudicial that Lively and her team are putting out there. They've done that, right? And now that the judge is hammering 3.6, 3.6, 3.6, make sure you're ethical and you're only saying what is absolutely necessary to basically defend your client publicly. If you've already done that, maybe you don't need to do it as much. And here was Mr. Friedman, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, after the hearing. Let's hear how short and sweet he is and what we think he's going to do in the future. I think he's going to keep it that way. I think he's responded as necessary and will continue to do so. But he wants to prove their innocence. Yes, it's a civil case, but don't get them wrong. They want to prove they are innocent.
Ben Chu, the lawyer who defended Johnny Depp in his case against Amber Heard, commented on high-profile cases like this, stating that even without a formal gag order, judges typically discourage conflicting parties from engaging in a media rampage.
Jesse, it's such a great question, so let's unpack it because they're different issues. Putting aside whether there's a protective or gag order in place, as you well know, you always want to be careful as an attorney to say strident things or to go too far, because even if there's no gag order or protective order in effect, judges tend not to like to see attorneys mouthing off or becoming strident, that there's only one star in a courtroom and that's the judge.
He also reflected that even if there's a possibility of a gag order being implemented, it's unlikely to happen at this stage. Using his own case as an example, he explained that even though a gag order seemed essential during the Depp-Heard trial, trial, the judge initially advised waiting until they were closer to the actual hearing. He suggested that a similar approach might be taken here, with the potential for some form of gag order being introduced as the case progresses and nears the trial date. For now, however, it seems the court is focused on moving the case forward without such restrictions.
In my experience, I've been on both sides of this issue. Judges are loath to impose protective orders or gag orders because the very nature of court proceedings is that they are open to the public. And any restriction on speech is anathema. I had one case which I thought we had a very compelling case for a gag order, and the court said, no, at least not now. Not until we get closer to trial. Now, as you know, once you get within the proximity of trial, once the jury summonses are going out, judges tend to be more receptive because of what you said a moment ago, which is the danger of tainting the jury pool. So I think as we get closer to the trial date, I think the judge might be more receptive to granting some form of gag order.
Niyama Ramani, another prominent attorney, commented that this case doesn't appear to be turning into a circus like the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial, primarily because federal courts don't allow cameras in the courtroom. However, he noted that since the case is filed in LA, it could still attract significant attention. Ramani argued that while this case isn't as high profile as Depp's, it's close in terms of prominence, and the dynamics of the situation seem quite similar, with public and media interest steadily growing.
Obviously, in federal court, for better or worse, it's tougher to get that circus environment because there's no cameras in there. Obviously, New York State courts don't have cameras. But one of the lawsuits is filed here in Los Angeles. And of course, there are cameras usually in Los Angeles courtrooms. And we are used to a lot of celebrity cases. So may not reach the level of Depp v. Heard. That's a unicorn type case because of Johnny Depp and who he is. But it may get close because there's a lot of fan interest in this case, both on traditional and social media.
The first hearing in the legal battle involving Blake Lively has delivered a significant setback for her and her team, despite their efforts to push for key requests, such as the removal of the opposing lawyer and the implementation of a gag order. The judge denied these motions, signaling a challenging road ahead. Legal analysts and experts have already begun weighing in, suggesting that this case is shaping up to be a complex and highly publicized affair, potentially rivaling some of the most high-profile celebrity legal disputes in recent memory. However, for now, Blake Lively finds herself in a position far from what she likely envisioned when initiating this legal action. The judge's decision to deny the gag order and the exclusion of the opposing lawyer indicates a reluctance to grant the immediate relief Lively's team sought. Instead, the court appears focused on moving the case forward without allowing either side to dominate the narrative through media or legal maneuvers. This approach has left Lively's team in a tougher spot, as they now face the challenge of navigating the case under these constraints. Meanwhile, the opposing side has emerged from the hearing with a sense of confidence, emphasizing their eagerness to prove their client's innocence swiftly. While the case is still in its early stages, the dynamics suggest it could become a drawn-out and contentious battle. Legal experts predict that as the case progresses, it may attract even more attention, especially given the high-profile nature of the parties involved. For now, Blake Lively's initial setback serves as a reminder that in high-stakes legal disputes, the path to resolution is rarely straightforward, and the courtroom drama is only just beginning. This case, as analysts suggest, is going to be one hell of a ride. What's your take on all this? Do you think Lively's team can turn things around, or is this case only going to get messier? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow for more updates. This legal showdown is just getting started.